I never imagined my life would feel so empty while being so full of routine. Wake up, make coffee, kiss my husband goodbye if he even noticed. Years of quiet dinners, polite conversations, and mechanical love had left me numb. Somewhere along the line, we stopped looking at each other. We became roommates. The spark?
Gone.
I didn't know I missed it until I felt it again. My nephew called on a Tuesday, asking if he could stay over for a few days during his college break. His parents were out of the country, and our home was closer to the city. I didn't think twice. I said yes. He was family after all. He arrived on Friday. I opened the door, and there he was, taller than I remembered, his voice deeper. Confident. At first, I only noticed how grown-up he'd become. He greeted me with a warm hug, the kind that lingered for half a second longer than it should have. I brushed it off. He was just being polite. The first night was uneventful. We talked over dinner. He asked about my work, my routine, if I was happy. I gave the usual answers. Things are fine. But that night I lay in bed, thinking about how I had smiled at him during dinner. Really smiled. Not the forced one I wore every day. It felt strange. And then wrong. The next day, I caught him looking at me while I was folding laundry. Not a glance, he was watching. Our eyes met. I looked away first. My stomach twisted with guilt. Still, I didn't say anything. I pretended not to notice the way his compliments were becoming personal. The way he lingered in the kitchen when I was alone. The way he sat a little too close on the couch. It wasn't all in my head. I felt it. That unspoken tension building between us, creeping into every conversation, every shared moment. He started helping me with chores, making excuses to be around. Once, his hand brushed against mine when we reached for the same plate. I didn't move mine. Neither did he. By the third night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying our little interactions. Was I imagining it all? Was I just craving attention so badly that I mistook kindness for desire? The next morning, my husband left early for work, as usual. My nephew and I had breakfast in silence. When he left the room, I felt a strange emptiness again. I kept asking myself, why? Why did my chest tighten every time he smiled at me? Why was I dressing a little nicer in the mornings? That afternoon, I found myself staring at my reflection longer than usual. I hadn't felt seen in years. And now, here I was, wondering what he saw in me. Wondering why I felt alive when I should only feel ashamed. I was standing at the edge of something I couldn't name, but I knew deep down I had already taken the first step. The storm hit just after dinner. Wind howled outside, windows rattled, and then the power cut out. I lit a candle and set it on the table, the small flame casting shadows around the room. He sat across from me, silent for a moment, then asked if I was afraid of storms. I said no, but my hands told a different story. He noticed. He always noticed. We talked. Nothing deep, at first. Weather, college life, music. Then the conversation turned. He asked if I was happy. I paused. That question had become so familiar lately, and I never had a real answer. I just smiled and said, I don't know anymore. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes fixed on mine. You deserve to be, he said quietly. That silence afterward was heavy, pressing. My throat tightened. I tried to shift the conversation, but the mood had already changed. He spoke again, softer this time. You don't look at anyone the way you look at me. I froze. My breath caught in my chest. That's not true, I whispered, but even I didn't believe it. I should have ended it there. I should have stood up, left the room, said something to break the tension. Instead, I stayed seated, staring into the flame like it held all the answers. When I finally looked up, he was closer than before. I felt the heat between us, not from the candle, from the air, thick with things we hadn't said. My hand was on the table. His reached out, fingers barely touching mine. I didn't pull away. I let it happen. I think about you, he said. No hesitation. No fear. Just raw, unfiltered truth. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream at him, at myself. But I didn't. I sat there, held hostage by the chaos inside me. He stood up, walked around the table, and stopped in front of me. I looked up at him, searching for something, maybe reason, maybe strength. What I found was heat. Intensity. A silent question I wasn't ready to answer. He leaned down slowly. I didn't stop him. His lips hovered over mine, and I felt my resolve collapse. But just before they met, I turned my head. "No," I said, my voice breaking. "We can't." He stepped back, immediately. No anger, no push. Just a nod. "I'm sorry," he said, voice low. That night, I lay in bed, heart racing, mind spinning. I kept seeing his eyes, hearing his voice, feeling the electricity that had passed between us. I had almost crossed a line I couldn't come back from. Almost. But even that almost had weight. Even that almost changed everything. Because now I knew it wasn't just a passing thought. It wasn't just me imagining things. He wanted me. And worse, I wanted him too. The house was quiet. My husband had left for a 2-day business trip that morning, the same way he always did. Quick kiss on the cheek, distracted words, no eye contact. I stood at the window long after he drove off, not because I missed him, but because I didn't know what else to do with the silence he left behind. I tried to stay busy. Cleaned, cooked, folded clothes that didn't need folding. But nothing worked. My mind wouldn't settle. Everything reminded me of what I'd been trying to forget. The conversation, his voice, the way he looked at me like I mattered, the way he made me feel like I was still something more than just someone's wife. It was early afternoon when I found myself in the living room, sitting with him again. We spoke casually, like nothing had ever happened between us. But the air was different. Heavy. Unspoken things hung between our words. I couldn't take it anymore. "You should go out. Meet someone your age," I said suddenly. He tilted his head.
"Why?"
"So I can pretend to feel something real with someone I don't care about." I swallowed. My throat was dry. This isn't right. He didn't argue. He didn't push. He just looked at me with this quiet certainty that broke through every wall I had left. I got up to leave the room, but he stood, walked to me, and before I could think or speak or stop myself, I turned toward him. We stood inches apart, breathless. There were no more words, no more doubts. His hand reached for my face. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I let it happen. The kiss came fast, urgent, like we both knew it was a mistake, but couldn't stop. His lips found mine, and everything inside me gave way. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was raw, needy, full of everything we'd been holding back. I didn't resist. I didn't even think. For the first time in years, I felt alive. His hands moved to my waist. Mine found his neck. The rest blurred into sensation. Every touch felt like something I'd forgotten I could feel. I didn't think about my husband. I didn't think about guilt. I thought only of the fire we had both tried to deny. And how, in that moment, denial didn't matter anymore. It was over quickly. Quietly. No words afterward. Just silence. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at nothing, heart pounding. He stood across the room, watching me, guilt already in his eyes. I couldn't look at him. I felt tears forming, but I held them in. He finally spoke. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have let it happen." I nodded. "Me neither." He said he'd pack his things. I didn't stop him. I couldn't. As the door closed behind him, the weight of what I'd done crushed me. Not just because I had betrayed my husband, but because a part of me didn't regret it. And that was the worst part of all. He didn't come back. Not even to collect what he left behind. A sweatshirt, a charger, a pair of shoes near the guest bed. I didn't touch them. I couldn't. Every time I passed that room, a sick weight settled in my stomach. I avoided it, like avoiding the truth could somehow erase it. My husband returned late the next evening. He was tired, distracted, just as always. He kissed my forehead and asked if everything was okay. I nodded. I lied. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and chose not to ask. Either way, I was relieved and ashamed in the same breath. Days passed. I functioned. I cooked. I cleaned. I smiled when needed. But inside I was hollow. I didn't hear from my nephew. No texts. No calls. Just silence. The kind of silence that wraps around you like a rope. I told myself it was better this way. That he deserved to forget. That I had to move on. But moving on wasn't simple. My reflection looked different now. Not because of guilt alone, but because I had seen parts of myself I'd buried. The need to be touched, to be wanted, to be more than someone's habit. I had felt something that scared me as much as it awakened me. 2 weeks after he left, I found a letter on my nightstand. No name, but I knew the handwriting immediately. It was short, apologetic. He said he never meant to hurt me, that he didn't expect to feel what he felt, that he thought he was strong enough to walk away, but he wasn't. He ended it by saying he'd never reach out again, that the damage was done, and he'd carry it alone. I read it 3 times. Then I burned it. The guilt didn't come in waves, it stayed. Quiet. Constant. And eventually it broke me. One night I told my husband. Every word. Every detail. I didn't cry. I didn't defend myself. I just told the truth. He didn't yell. He didn't speak for almost an hour. Just stared at me like I was someone he'd never met before. When he finally did say something, it wasn't anger. It was heartbreak. And that hurt worse. He moved into the guest room. We didn't speak much after that. Just basic things. Groceries. Bills. Empty logistics. We went to counseling, tried to untangle the mess, but there was no trust left to build on. What I broke couldn't be pieced back together with words or time. We still live under the same roof. Strangers wearing wedding bands. We smile in public. We nod in hallways. We pretend well. But the silence between us speaks louder than anything we've ever said. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if it was worth it. That moment. That fire. That feeling of being alive again. And every time the answer is the same. It wasn't. But it still mattered. And that's the part I'll carry with me forever.